The plate slipped from Naomi Hart's hands and shattered against the kitchen floor just as the front door slammed. She froze, heart racing, listening to the echo fade through the house. Footsteps moved away down the hallway. No apology, no pause, not even a glance back. "Ethan?" she called, her voice thinner than she meant it to be. No answer. Naomi crouched slowly, fingers trembling as she picked up the broken pieces. Tomato sauce spread across the tiles like a quiet accusation. She had timed dinner perfectly again. 7 o'clock sharp. The way Ethan liked it. The way he used to appreciate. The clock above the stove ticked once, then again. By the time she finished cleaning, it was nearly 9. Ethan finally walked back into the kitchen, jacket already halfway off, phone in his hand. He did not look at the table. He did not look at her. "You're late," Naomi said. "I told you not to wait up. You didn't tell me anything." He sighed, annoyed, as if she had interrupted something important. "I had meetings. Long ones." Naomi noticed the smell then. A faint floral scent clinging to his collar. Not her perfume. She had stopped wearing it months ago because he once said it gave him headaches. "You could have called," she said. "I'm under pressure, Naomi. Not everyone has the luxury of sitting at home all day." The words landed harder than he realized, or maybe harder than he cared to notice. She swallowed. "I worked on the proposal for the cafe again. I think I found a smaller space near Riverside Park. Lower rent." Ethan laughed, a short, sharp sound. "That dream again? You really think pastries are going to pay the bills?" "It's not just pastries," she said quietly. It's nothing," he cut in. "I'm the one keeping us afloat. You should be grateful." He walked out before she could respond. Naomi sat down at the table alone, staring at 2 plates of untouched food. Her chest ached in a way she could not name anymore. This was not sudden. This had been happening slowly, piece by piece, for months. Ethan stopped asking about her day, stopped sitting beside her on the couch, stopped touching her altogether. Work had become his favorite excuse. The next morning, he left before sunrise. Naomi heard the door close and waited, hoping he would come back for his coffee. He did not. As she cleaned the living room later, his phone buzzed on the sofa. She told herself not to look. She told herself she trusted her husband. But the screen lit up again. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You handled that meeting perfectly." Naomi stared at the message until her hands went numb. She did not scream. She did not throw the phone. She placed it back exactly where it had been and walked into the bathroom, locking the door behind her. When she finally cried, she pressed a towel to her mouth so the sound would not escape. Her best friend Claire noticed the change immediately. "You look hollow," Claire said over coffee 2 days later. "What's going on?" Naomi forced a smile. "Nothing. Ethan's just busy." "Busy men still come home," Claire replied. "Busy men still talk." Naomi did not answer. That night, she waited until Ethan came back. Midnight this time. She stood in the hallway, blocking his path. "Who is Lily?" she asked. Ethan stopped short. His face hardened. "Why are you going through my phone?" "So it's true," Naomi said. "You didn't even deny it." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "She understands me. She respects what I bring to the table. I'm your wife." "And you stopped seeing me," he snapped. "All you do is cling to ideas that never go anywhere." The words cut deep. "I'm leaving," he said, grabbing a bag from the closet. "I deserve more." He walked out without looking back. Naomi stayed standing long after the door closed. 2 days later, she saw them. She had gone to the city by chance, hoping to distract herself. Outside a glass building downtown, Ethan stepped out laughing. A woman followed closely beside him, tall, polished, confident. Lily Barnes, his boss. Lily touched his arm as she spoke. Ethan leaned in. Naomi turned away before they noticed her. That night, as she sorted through old boxes looking for anything to ground herself, She found a yellowed envelope tucked inside a book she had not opened in years. Her grandmother's handwriting covered the front. Inside was a letter. Naomi, some truths are heavy. I kept this from you until the moment you would need it. Trust yourself when the time comes. Attached was a name she recognized instantly. Redwood Holdings. Her breath caught. Ethan worked there. The next morning, Naomi sat across from a calm, silver-haired lawyer named Mr. Caldwell. Your grandmother was more than a quiet investor, he said. She held controlling shares through a trust. Naomi felt dizzy. What does that mean? It means, he said carefully, that Redwood Holdings belongs to you. The room went silent. The company that had taken her husband. The company that paid Lily's salary. Hers. Naomi left the office, shaking, the weight of the folder heavy in her hands. That evening, Ethan came back to collect the rest of his things. I'm moving in with Lily, he said flatly. She doesn't want drama. Naomi looked at him, really looked at him, and realized the man she loved no longer existed. Ambition has a price, she said quietly. He scoffed and left. Naomi locked the door behind him and leaned against it, heart pounding. For the first time since everything fell apart, something else stirred beneath the grief. Resolve. And if you are already feeling the tension rise, take a second to like this video and subscribe. You will want to see how this unfolds. She did not yet know how, but Naomi understood one thing clearly. Ethan had walked away from more than a marriage, and he had no idea what was coming next. Naomi did not sleep that night. She sat on the edge of the bed, the lawyer's folder resting on her lap, reading the same pages over and over again. Share percentages, legal clauses, dates that went back decades. Her grandmother's quiet signature appeared everywhere, deliberate and steady. This was real. By morning, the shock gave way to fear. What if I can't do this? She whispered to the empty room. Her phone buzzed. Claire. You disappeared, Claire said the moment Naomi answered. Are you alive? I think my life just changed, Naomi replied. They met later that day, and Naomi told her everything. The letter, the lawyer, Redwood Holdings. Claire stared at her for a long moment. So, let me get this straight. Your husband left you for his boss, and now you own the company? Naomi let out a short laugh that sounded almost hysterical. That's one way to put it. You're not going to hide, are you? Claire asked. Naomi shook her head slowly. No, I'm tired of shrinking. 2 weeks later, Naomi sent a formal request to the board of Redwood Holdings. She did not announce herself as the owner. She simply asked for a meeting regarding trust verification. Lily Barnes laughed when the email crossed her desk. Who does she think she is? Lily said to Ethan, tossing the printout aside. Some distant relative chasing a payout? Ethan felt uneasy. He had not been able to shake the image of Naomi standing so still when he left. She had not cried. She had not begged. Something about that silence bothered him. The boardroom was tense the day Naomi walked in. She wore a simple navy dress. No jewelry. No pretense. Mr. Caldwell sat beside her, calm as ever. Lily arrived last, heels clicking sharply against the floor. Let's make this quick, Lily said, not bothering to sit. We're very busy. Mr. Caldwell placed the documents on the table. Naomi Hart is the majority shareholder of Redwood Holdings, he said, effective immediately. The room erupted. That's impossible, Lily snapped. I've seen every ownership record. Not the private trust, Mr. Caldwell replied. Ethan's face drained of color. Naomi met his eyes for the first time in weeks. He looked panicked. Lily laughed again, but there was no humor in it. You expect us to hand over a company to someone who's never run a business? Naomi spoke calmly. I expect what is legally mine. The board voted. Lily lost. Naomi Hart walked out as the controlling owner of Redwood Holdings. The next morning, she stepped into an office that had never been meant for her. Whispers followed her through the halls. She's his ex-wife. She doesn't belong here. Lily cornered her by the elevators. You may have the papers, Lily said quietly, but you have no idea how this place works. Then teach me, Naomi replied. Or step aside. Lily's smile was thin. I don't step aside. The sabotage began immediately. Meetings scheduled without her. Files that went missing. Staff warned not to cooperate. Naomi noticed everything. She wrote it down. Ethan tried to talk to her one evening in the parking garage. I didn't know, he said. If I had... You still would have left, Naomi replied. You wanted power. You just chose the wrong source. Lily tightened her grip on Ethan as her control slipped. You owe me loyalty, she reminded him. Don't forget who gave you everything. The pressure showed. Ethan stopped smiling, stopped sleeping. Naomi worked late, learning every corner of the company. Mr. Caldwell warned her, power makes enemies nervous. Be patient. One night, an anonymous email arrived. Check the offshore accounts. Naomi did not hesitate. What she found was worse than she imagined. Forged approvals, hidden transfers, Lily's signature everywhere. The emergency board meeting was brief. Naomi placed the evidence on the table. Lily screamed, accused, threatened. Security escorted her out. The room fell silent. Naomi exhaled slowly. Later that evening, Ethan showed up at her door. I made a mistake, he said. I lost everything. You traded loyalty for ambition, Naomi replied. That was your choice. She closed the door gently. If this story has you hooked, don't forget to like and comment below. Let me know what you would have done in Naomi's place. And say nothing yet, because what happens next will change everything. The morning after Lily Barnes was removed, Redwood Holdings felt like a house after a storm. People showed up early but spoke in low voices. Doors closed softly. Emails were reread before being sent. No one knew who was safe to trust anymore. Naomi noticed everything. She sat at the head of the long conference table, hands folded, listening as senior managers presented reports they clearly expected her not to understand. When they finished, she asked quiet, precise questions that forced them to clarify numbers they had hoped would slide by. Mr. Harris, the longest-serving operations director, leaned back in his chair afterward. I'll be honest, he said. We didn't expect you to last this long. Naomi met his gaze. Neither did I. But here we are. Some nodded. Others looked away. That afternoon, a major client called. If this company is unstable, we'll pull our contracts, the man said bluntly. We don't work with chaos. Naomi closed her eyes for half a second before replying, give me 30 days. If you see no change, you can walk away. The line was silent. 30 days, he agreed finally. No excuses. The clock had started ticking again. But this time Naomi was ready. She stayed late every night, reading reports, meeting department heads, listening more than she spoke. She learned who had been promoted out of loyalty instead of skill, who had been silenced, who had been afraid. Claire joined her as an executive assistant, refusing to let Naomi face this alone. You don't need to be cold to be strong, Claire reminded her one evening. Naomi nodded, but I need to be clear. Not everyone welcomed the change. Rumors spread. Anonymous complaints surfaced. Someone leaked a false story to a business blog, claiming Naomi was dismantling the company out of spite. Naomi traced it back within days. She called the employee into her office. I won't ruin your career, she said calmly, but you will not stay here. Security walked him out. The message spread quickly. Ethan watched from the sidelines, powerless. Lily's absence did not free him. It exposed him. Without her influence, he was just another employee with a stained reputation. Colleagues avoided him. Meetings excluded him. One evening, he waited outside Naomi's office. I'll take any role, he said. I'll start at the bottom. Naomi did not raise her voice. You don't get to rebuild on ground you burned. He left without another word. A week later, while clearing Lily's old office, Naomi found a locked drawer. Inside were files that made her stomach tighten. Blackmail records, payments, threats disguised as bonuses. She called an emergency meeting. "We're involving authorities," Naomi said. Some board members hesitated. "This could cost us more clients." Naomi shook her head. Then they were never the right ones. The vote passed. Investigations began. The 30-day deadline loomed. On the final week, Naomi stood before the same client who had threatened to leave. "We cleaned house," she said, "and we won't hide it." The man studied her. "You're different from the others." "I don't confuse power with fear," Naomi replied. He signed the renewal. That night, Naomi stood alone in her office, city lights stretching below. She opened her grandmother's letter again. "Power does not change you. It reveals you." Naomi smiled faintly. "If you've stayed this far, tap the like button." The investigation did not stay quiet for long. Once the authorities stepped in, Redwood Holdings became a headline. Not the kind investors liked, but the kind that forced truth into the open. Naomi watched the news reports from her office, volume low, hands steady. Every revelation felt heavy, yet clean, like a wound finally exposed to air. Employees were called in for questioning. Old executives resigned before they could be asked anything. Files were seized, accounts frozen. Through it all, Naomi remained present. She walked the floors every morning, greeting people by name, answering questions directly. "We are not hiding," she told them. "We are fixing what was broken." Some believed her immediately. Others waited, cautious, bruised by years of fear. One afternoon, Mr. Harris stopped her outside the elevator. "I misjudged you," he said. "Most people would have buried this." Naomi looked at him calmly. "Most people are afraid of losing control." "And you?" "I'm afraid of becoming what I replaced." That answer stayed with him. Ethan appeared again a few days later. This time, he looked smaller. His suit no longer fit the way it once had. His voice cracked when he spoke. "I didn't just lose my job," he said. "I lost everything." Naomi studied him for a long moment. She felt no triumph, only distance. "You lost yourself long before you lost this company," she replied. "I loved you," he insisted. "No," Naomi said gently. "You loved what I gave up for you." She walked past him without another word. That was the last time she saw him. The company meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Hundreds of employees gathered in the atrium. Some stood. Some leaned against railings. All eyes were on Naomi as she stepped forward. She did not use a teleprompter. "I won't pretend this company has a clean past," she said, "but I promise you a clean future." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "We will reward competence. We will protect honesty. And we will never ask loyalty in exchange for silence." Applause broke out slowly, then filled the space. Afterward, Claire hugged her tightly. "You did it," she whispered. Naomi shook her head. "I started it." Change came in layers. New department heads were promoted, policies rewritten, anonymous reporting systems installed, salaries adjusted. Women who had been overlooked for years found themselves finally heard. Not everyone stayed. Those who thrived on fear left quietly. Those who believed in the work stayed and rebuilt. One evening, Naomi returned to the house she once shared with Ethan. It was quieter now, lighter. She stood in the kitchen, noticing the clock still ticking above the stove. This time, it did not feel like a countdown. She packed the last of his forgotten things into a box and set it by the door for donation. There was no anger in the act, only completion. Later that night, she sat at the table with a notebook, writing plans not just for the company, but for herself. The cafe idea resurfaced, not as an escape, but as a possibility. She smiled at that. Weeks passed. Redwood Holdings stabilized. Contracts returned. New partnerships formed, slower and stronger. One afternoon, Naomi received a handwritten note from an employee she barely knew. "Thank you for making this a place where I don't have to be afraid." She read it twice, then placed it carefully in her desk drawer. On the anniversary of her grandmother's passing, Naomi visited the old house by the lake, where she had spent summers as a child. She sat on the porch, letter in hand, the same one that had started everything. "You knew," Naomi whispered. "You always knew." The wind rustled through the trees as if in answer. Back at the company, a reporter asked her a question that would later be quoted everywhere. "Do you consider this revenge?" Naomi shook her head. "I consider it responsibility." That answer defined her. At night, when the building was quiet, Naomi sometimes stood by the window, watching the city lights, thinking about how close she had come to losing herself, trying to hold on to someone who was already gone. She thought about the woman who had waited by the door with cold food on the table. She barely recognized her anymore. If you've made it this far, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe if you believe stories like this deserve to be told. And comment below. Let me know what part stayed with the most.